Is, hey bro, what's up? I'm Vin,
And I'm Jeff.
and welcome to our podcast. This week is about anxiety with our guest Kyle. Kyle is a longtime best friend from college. We met in our first year, I believe, in engineering class, and we helped each other throughout the years, just studying and doing our weeknights of just study sessions with music and EDM in the background. And then after college, we just kept in touch. Yeah, Kyle, if you want to give yourself a little introduction.
Yeah, for sure. So, like Vin, you said, we've known each other since college. Really close friends in college, met through engineering. Um, yeah, and I'm just excited to be here, excited to be on this podcast. I feel like I've definitely experienced a lot of anxiety in my life, um, which is hence why you asked me to do the podcast. But no, I listened to the first two episodes and it's great. So I'm just excited to be here.
Appreciate it, man. So our quote of the week, Kyle, if you would hand it out.
Yeah, the quote of the week: our anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows, but only empties today of its strengths. By C.H. Spurgeon.
All right. And reading that, what do you think? What do you think about the quote, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty on par, I'd say. Um, Anxiety kind of takes you out of the present moment. It makes you feel like you're solving a problem or makes you feel like you're being productive, thinking about tomorrow, um, or just worrying about the future. But really, it just kind of takes you out of the present moment. And so, yeah, I'd say that the quote is spot on.
I would agree. Living with a lot of anxiety, like Kyle said, it takes you out of the present moment because instead of living day by day and taking life in its strides, you're just like, oh, this could happen tomorrow. I could run into this, and then next thing you know, you just miss something important that's going on right now.
And it's a lot of energy. When anxiety takes over, you're just your brain's just racking, it's running. So I get the losing your strength in today, and then like you said, it's just the day's gone. So cool. All right. So let's get into anxiety. So first topic is when you're less likely to talk about it, it increases the risk, interestingly enough. Um, I think because you're not coping with it correctly, you're not really being aware. Some people aren't even aware, right? They're just like, "Oh my God, I'm being anxious right now. Like life is happening. I don't know what's going on." And I think it's like a snowball effect. How what do y'all think?
Well, it's definitely one of those. If you ignore it, it becomes a bigger problem.
Hmm.
Like that's the
Yeah,
simplest way to put it. Like if you don't face it, it's gonna come back to bite you.
yeah. I think if there's something you're anxious about, um, maybe there's something you can do to plan for something in the future, or maybe it's just excessive worry. But yeah, I just think it just takes you out of the present moment.
Right. So what does anxiety look like for y'all? I kind of have a good hold on. I kind of try to prevent myself from the previous years of like I went through. I call it brain training, emotional training of like I don't want negative feelings to take over my life. So I took a lot of time of like, okay, I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to feel these negative feelings, and I want to make sure I'm in the present moment. I'm happy. So I'm not. What happens to y'all when anxiety takes over? What are ongoing feelings?
The biggest feeling I get is like you can feel your heart rate accelerate and like you get that feeling of like my blood pressure's rising and like extreme nervousness. And sometimes like I don't even know what's causing it. Like I'll just be sitting on the couch watching a show and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, like I can feel my heart rate going, like what the hell, like what's going on? But those are kind of like the main things like I experience with anxiety is just that accelerated heart rate and like rising blood pressure.
Yeah, I'd say similar for me. restlessness, like hard to sit still, racing thoughts, definitely heart beating faster. And I just want to preface it by saying when I think of fear in general, there's like a couple responses. Usually you hear fight or flight, right?
Mhm.
If there's actually a fearful situation, if there's like a bear trying to coming to attack you, right? You could fight it or you could run from it. But
Okay.
there's also one that's not talked about as much, I think, which is freeze. And so I think that is a fear response, an anxiety response that I have come to be familiar with, which can show up in different ways, but it could be like brain fog, kind of just ignoring or just trying to distract yourself, dissociating kind of from the scenario that you're in. And it could be a little hard to explain, but yeah, I would say just kind of that freeze response
I
is what
would
I get.
I would hope you run away from the bear if you're ever confronted. I hope flight is the mandatory response every time you see a bear.
See, but that's
I
not
actually don't
how
know what you.
everybody responds. Like, you personally may be like, in that situation, I know I'm gonna run. Like, flight is my option. But
Right.
he is completely correct. Like, there is that third response of freeze, and for a lot of people, like, it's they can't control it. It's they are faced with this situation, and their body stops, and there's nothing they
Mhm.
can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I hope nobody takes fight because I don't think anybody can beat a bear in a fight.
You know, you can't outrun a bear either,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's true. So I guess you're screwed. Um, so what happens? What can happen with anxiety? Can does it lead to? Is it a gateway into abuse of substance? Um, what are like kind of the symptoms when you get anxiety if it gets really bad?
Oh, I would absolutely say it can lead to substance abuse. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that will take that escape. Like,
Hmm.
they deal with anxiety and stress on a daily level, and they're just like, you know what? You know, hitting the bottle helps, or smoking a joint helps, and it, gets rid of those physical feelings of, the accelerated heart rate, things like that, but it's not assisting the problem whatsoever. It's a band aid that's just going to
Yeah.
snowball down the road, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think excessive anxiety can lead to trying to run away from the feeling. It could be, it could lead to an addiction eventually, like maybe alcohol or drugs. But it can also just be distracting yourself. I think for me, it's been maybe just gaming too much or like too much entertainment, trying to kind of numb out and escape the feeling,
Hmm.
or even like an addiction to overthinking, which sounds weird, but
Okay.
I think just yeah, you can think too much when you feel like you're solving a problem, but
Hmm.
it's not really productive.
Really? Like, is it like circular thinking, or you're what? Like, what do you mean by overthinking?
Yeah, so I think with anxiety, one thing that's helped me is just like trying to be still or to try to allow myself to relax. So like I might experience, oh, it's night, time to go to bed. I'm just having racing thoughts because maybe there's a big project at work or worrying about this social situation. Or I'm just taking a walk, taking a break from work, and sometimes I will find myself literally just thinking about other problems or trying to solve something.
Yeah.
So that's just what I mean with an addiction to thinking,
So
I,
instead of
overthinking.
allowing yourself to clear your mind, you distract from one problem by thinking about another.
I guess in a sense, yeah, if that makes sense.
yeah, I thought the precursor to anxiety would have been the overthinking. You overthought in the first place, and it gave you anxiety because there's just so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, overthinking and anxiety are kind of tied together, like
Okay.
just excessive worry,
Nice.
at
Or
least for
not
me.
nice. Yeah. Um, what are the kind of causes? How do y'all relate to like what has caused? I have seen apparently genetics. That's a new one for me is your genes, if like people in your family has had anxiety, you're more likely to as well. Obviously it doesn't mean you will definitely have it, but apparently it's a factor in how you handle situations, life situations.
Which would make sense. I mean, look at it with alcoholism. They say that if your family has a history of alcoholism, you are predisposed to it. So, in my opinion, it would function the same way. Like if you come from a long line of people who couldn't cope with anxiety and struggled with anxiety, you are predisposed to be an anxious person and
Mm.
fall into that loop.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can definitely be genetic. Like you guys said, there's a maybe a predisposition to it. I think also maybe if you're around people that are worrying a lot, whether family or friends, I think that can influence you as well and how you handle situations. I also think, yeah, just going along with genetic, maybe like personality. Some people are more prone to it than others.
Because that was my next thought. I was just like, if your family has anxiety, then isn't it just a nurture problem? Because you're more likely than most likely you're growing up with them and you just see anxious people all the time. So interesting how I should have looked more. I should have studied more into like if it's true they saw like DNA, like they researched scientifically like DNA strands of genes with like anxiety or something like that. But because psychology, of course, you're being nurtured around anxious. That's going to be all you know. That's all you know how to handle life is overthinking and being anxious about it.
Why couldn't it be both though? It could be nature and nurture.
Right, right. It could
Agreed.
be. So, what other causes? Trauma is another one. Um, high stress problems and health problems, interestingly, and lifestyle.
Mm, trauma for sure. Like,
Okay.
if you live through a great trauma,
PTSD.
that's going to cause
Hmm.
anxiety with everything else in life because you're going to be sitting there like, well, what if it happens again? Could it happen
Right,
again? Could it lead to
right,
this? Could it lead to that?
right.
High stress, I would definitely
Uh,
agree with as well. Like, if you're looking at it from like a work perspective, if you're on a project at work and it's high stress, like needs to be done in a certain amount of time to a certain standard, like you're gonna sit there and you're gonna overthink about it. You're gonna be worrying about it, like is what I'm doing good enough? Is it gonna get that stamp of approval from the higher ups? And there are a lot of people that are going to take that into every project at work moving forward. Like, they set this high standard that I needed to do so much for this one. Like, what's that mean for all future endeavors with this position or any position you hold? Health problems, I could see. I don't know if I could speak to that much. Like, I never really looked at it as like my choices for my like health and lifestyle. I don't know how that would feed personally into like my anxieties. I mean, I guess poor diet, like, if you're anxious about getting fat, like that, I could see that,
yeah.
but that'd be as far as I could go on it. I don't know if you got anything different, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, for health problems, I mean, I think what you eat does influence like how your brain functions. So I think if you're eating poorly over a long period of time, it can affect maybe your mood and in turn your anxiety. I think it makes sense like with high stress as well. If you're constantly in stressful situations over time, it's like you're I don't know what part of your brain, but you're almost like triggered more easily into that fight or flight mode.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean situational as well. Trauma, I was just thinking like I know there's one thing like I think it's agoraphobia where people are just fearful of crowds, that
True.
type of thing. So maybe if someone had like so that can be situational, I think, with trauma.
Claustrophobia. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tight
claustrophobia.
spaces.
Yeah, you experience you're in a really tight space and it's a fearful situation and now like you're fearful of being in that situation again or if you're around that that can cause anxiety. So I think that could be situational with trauma.
Right.
Um yeah.
Okay. Cool. And what ends up happening is just as Ben as as we've always talked about is when we feel like oh, we can't go to anybody, we don't want to seek help or reach out to anyone due to the fact I will be judged. It's like, oh, I'm anxious. I like, oh, I'm just anxious, and then it seems a little silly to go out and try to reach out for help. Kind of an agenda on how men have to deal with things, and we're kind of just scared, right? There's a stigma.
Yeah. As we've talked about before, though, that stigma is finally starting to vanish over time. Like it's becoming more accepted, but there are still a
Right.
large amount of men out there who are just like, nope, I'll be a man, I'll figure it out, and
Yeah.
that doesn't help you at all.
And I think it's cultural too, right? I think in more like the specific demographics, like worldwide, yes, it's becoming more apparent, more talked about. But when you go into the smaller groups of, culturally, especially, let's say, uh, what's the word, like financially poor groups, they probably, well, one, they don't have the resources, right, to go and
Mhm.
seek help. But two, it's like this is life. This is how you have to do it. What's why are you coming to me about your anxiety? Like, why are you so scared? Like, get over it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just kind of give up and just, it is what it is.
Right.
But the lack of resources, and accessibility to them is another huge key factor. So I
Right.
agree with that.
Yeah, and I think there's a space to reach out for help. I think it's, yeah, the idea of just, be a man or suck it up. I heard you guys talk about that in previous episodes. Can be, it just seems not super helpful. I think it's important to process your emotions. And I think if someone is dealing with excessive anxiety or even just experiences anxiety where it's like, it feels like it's more bad days than good days, maybe it's good to reach out for help. And there's lots of resources out there. And there's no shame in that and asking for help as well. There's plenty of resources. So I just want to, I guess, encourage people that are listening if they're dealing with excessive anxiety or they just have this base level of anxiety that they feel like can't go away. I think just encourage you to reach out to help for help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, fear isn't a bad thing, right? Having a little bit of anxiety isn't really a bad thing because well, biologically, it's helpful in survival situations back in the day. So I think it's biologically normal for anxiety to occur. It's when it's excessive, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's uncontrollable, takes control of our lives. It's when it causes the stress and affects quality of life.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah, exactly. At the root, there's like fear, and I mean, fear is not a bad thing. Like the example earlier, if there's a bear, you should probably be fearful. If you're not, what's gonna happen? Like that's a situation you could be fearful. But in today's day and age, we have cities, we have people are living in houses. Hopefully, everybody that's listening, has enough like food and water and like resources to support themselves. And so, I think like environmentally, it feels like there's less fear, but there can still be anxiety. And so, yeah, I mean, anxiety can be helpful. I mean, it's just a feeling. It's just telling you something. But I think it's when it becomes very excessive and a daily thing that you're battling with that it can be good to ask for help.
And that help can come in many forms. Like it could be something as simple as talking to a good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like going with the overthinking, going with the excessive anxiety, it bringing the quote back in as well. It's anxiety is kind of this illusion that we are in control or just trying to solve a problem from the overthinking, but really it takes us out of the present moment, right? Usually we're worrying about the future or we're ruminating on the past, and it's just adding unnecessary stress. I actually personally like that brings me back of like I guess I lied when I said I couldn't really relate because I used to overthink every single night. I wouldn't sleep for 2 hours. I remember all the time. It would always take me 2 hours to fall asleep because I would overthink. And I guess that was a symptom of anxiety. I just really didn't put it together. I wasn't like scared or anything. I was just like just constantly just overthinking about the past, about the future, both for 2 hours apparently. And some people would say that was a waste of my time, but I was laying in bed anyways, so I don't really know. Was it really a waste?
Depends how you look at it, but it could be.
Right.
But that plays into the like I always call it the what if game.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I played. I played what if every night. Every night. That's what I did.
That is a big form of anxiety, is that what if game, because you're sitting there like, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if a meteor falls out the sky and hits me right now? Like, and it turns into that excessive worry, because like you said, you're worrying about things that aren't even in your control. Something that you cannot do anything about at that present moment, but it's still weighing so heavy on you, which is what a lot of people that deal with excessive anxiety deal with on a daily basis. It is that major what if game, like what if this happens? What if, like, even I'm guilty of it. Like anytime I have an important event or like job interview, doctor's appointment, anything like that, like if it's early in the morning, that night prior, I guarantee you I'm sitting there laying in bed playing the what if I sleep through my alarms? Mm-hmm. What if I wake up at 9 o'clock and I'm supposed to be there at 8? Every night.
Right, and not only did I do the future, but I would go in the past, and I'm sure, and like I don't think anybody can actually not fall for this, but of like, what if I had done this differently, right? We go into the past and thinking like, oh, I wish we time traveled, went back and fixed our mistakes, yada yada yada. Like I did that for a long time, for so long.
And that's another branch of like the problems with anxiety that people are facing is, instead of accepting like, yes, I made choice A when I should have made choice B, that can sit there and weigh on them for days.
Regret.
Yeah, it goes to the past and to the future, and I've known people that have been stuck just in so much regret, so much ruminating over the past, wondering, what if I did this different? I should have done this different. And then also just kind of robs you of the joy of the present moment. But for me, I would say, the what if game, I've definitely found myself doing that too. A lot of times it can be related to health issues, and it can lead to catastrophizing. So it's like, oh, I have an upset stomach. Oh, is it because I'm eating something bad? What? I look up this.
WebMD.
Shouldn't be doing this. Look up WebMD. Oh, I have these symptoms. It's like, oh, I might have stomach cancer. It's like, oh, I might die. And then it leads to the worst case scenario. And it sounds dumb in the moment, but it's like we do this in our brains. We catastrophize, like going to the worst case scenario,
right?
Almost like assuming what we're going to happen. Sometimes, and we're not even the experts. And so, I would encourage anybody listening, look up something called cognitive distortions. Catastrophizing is one of them. I've found myself in a lot of them before, and just these types of thinking styles can lead to anxiety.
And I think that's a big part of like a self-esteem, or just not confident in yourself, of like, oh, when the worst does come, I can't handle it. Like I don't know what I would do if this happens. So it's just growing up and living a life of where you weren't built to where you had the mindset of like, oh, I'm good. I've lived many lifetimes of whatever you had to go through, mental illness, trauma, stress, and it's like, if you were able to do that in the past 25 years, you can do it now. So it's I think that's a big like confidence, factor.
I'd agree.
Yeah, but also leads into like a mental filter as well when people focus on only the negatives, right? Because it's the same thing. It's like if you only see the bad things, then of course you're gonna be worried about the bad things, right? And then like no good will ever come out of it. My dad loved the saying. He always burned this in my head of like, oh, you were so focused on someone else's negativity, you don't even see the dirt in your own eye. And I'm
Mm.
like, thank you, Dad. You don't have to tell me the 10th time this week. I get it. Like, he really loved that quote. I don't know why.
I mean, if the
Oh
shoe
god.
fits.
If the shoe fits, yeah. Um, Circles of control. Kind of what I was saying with confidence is it's related to control, right? Some people like we want to control every little aspect of our life, um, and even if it's something we can't even control, right? Like I'm a meteor falling. Like, what are we gonna do? Like you're gonna punch it? I don't know.
You can try.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and try it.
I don't know
Tell me
how
how that
successful
goes.
you're gonna be, but you
Well,
can try.
If
yeah,
you're
yeah.
one,
Tell me.
if you're One Punch Man,
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
Well, then it's a non-issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say something on that.
Hmm.
Circles of control. I think there's things that's inside of our control and things that are outside of our control, and it's, I guess, important to realize um, what we can control and what we can't. So I think for me, something that I've dealt with in my life is, I would say, fear of rejection in social situations. Just wanting to make friends, wanting people to like me, right? And so I think that leads to almost like assuming in my head or trying to control what the other person thinks of me. And so I had to realize, like, I'll be genuine and be kind, be honest, whatever. But like, some people are gonna like me, some people I'll click with, some people I won't. I can't control what others think of me, so it's just like the idea of trying not to worry about the things that are outside of our control.
There's that saying, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It's like the whole like give me strength to change what I can't control or can't accept or whatever. I don't know the exact quote, but I feel like that's kind of where you were headed.
Yeah, similar to that. I think it was the Serenity Prayer that Phil said, but I can't quote it off the top of my head either.
Brain don't work.
um, no, it's okay. And it's the same with perfectionism, right? It's like to hit, you want to be perfect in every way. You're trying to hit these unattainable standards, that if you set it up yourself, your parents set it up, society, culture, right? Being as a man, like you're just trying to fit this mold everyone's trying to put into, or you put up yourself, and you get scared, you get anxious, you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this, or like what if, right? What if I don't do this?
So with perfectionism, like I know that is something that a lot of people struggle with because you want to be the best that you can be and you want to be perfect, but you're setting yourself up for failure, which is going to
Hmm.
lead to more anxiety and more problems because you're going to be like, I need to do it this way, and like some people will be able to do it, but not everybody. So like it's a very difficult goal to try and attain in being perfect in everything you do because we're human. We make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. There may be some
Um,
people you view as perfect, but everyone has their flaws, but not everyone's able to accept flaws.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like what you said about it. Kind of sets you up for failure, because I was thinking that perfectionism um, can be related to fear of failure, where you want to hit such high standards or be perfect in your job or in your relationships, or you want to live up to whatever it is, like society's standards or society says a man should be. And so it's like you're trying so hard and striving, and then as soon as you make one mistake, it's like, okay, well, now you're not perfect, and it's like it just leads to a lot of worry. Now I just want to like say, I mean, there's a healthy dose of like wanting to improve yourself for sure, wanting to get better, but you also don't want to set unattainable goals, or um yeah, like it's okay to make mistakes, and just a standard of perfect, like you said, is just setting you up for failure.
Yeah, like goals are definitely important. Like I'm not trying to downplay having
For sure.
goals, but you want them to be attainable goals. And personally, like, I found the best way to attain those is break them into smaller pieces. Like, I will use weight loss as the example. Like, I personally don't like how much I weigh. I wish I could drop 40 pounds, but my goal is not right out the gate do everything I can to drop 40 pounds. It's break it down, and like, I set myself the goal by December, I would be happy if I lost 5. That's a very attainable goal. Now, if I were to rewrite that and say by December, I hope I lose all 40, now it's not so attainable. Like, could it be done? Yes, but it's a lot less achievable. So, breaking those goals into attainable parts, like you said, to continue to better yourself is a great thing to do. Absolutely.
And I think it doesn't help that when the goals were set by someone other than yourself, right? It that does create a lot of anxiety because it's not who you want to be or who you are. So,
You're trying to
you know,
fit somebody else's mold.
Yeah.
exactly. So it's try to get out of that situation of like, hey, like figure yourself out and be like, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. And if people don't like that, then F them, you know? Yeah.
Very blunt.
Yes.
I like
I,
it.
I mean, what else are you gonna say? Like that's the whole point, right? You're anxious because you're just thinking so much about it. Like, oh my gosh, I rejection. That's what you said. It was like it's the
Hmm.
fear of rejection of like I'm not what everyone wants me to be, and I want everyone to like me, but no one. There's nothing in this world where everyone likes. Everyone can,
Right.
be unanimous on. It's literally impossible.
Yeah, there's always going to be disagreements and different viewpoints.
Exactly. Um. And another feeling of just when you're always busy or always needing to be productive can always be cause anxiety.
And that's a two-way street. So what I mean by that is, like, I personally know people that can't sit still. They
Hmm.
always need to be doing something. Whether it's, okay, I've got 10 minutes, I can get a load of laundry started. Or, I have time to sweep the bathroom. Like, they always need to be moving. And then when that moment comes that they're like, I can't think of another task to do, immediate anxiety. Immediate.
Mm.
Like, I need to be doing something, but I can't think of anything to do. And that, like, it has vast negative impacts on that person. And then the other side of that is the people that are too anxious to do any of the tasks. So, like, they're the opposite end of they can't even get the strength to do any of it. So they sit there and worry about, well, I know I've got A, B, and C to do, and I've got 2 days to do it, but I don't want to do it. Or I can't do it.
It seems to be the radical versions of fight and flight, right? Like the people that need to just keep doing everything is fight, and the people that like they can't do anything is like freeze or flight. Yeah, it seems to be the radical versions of anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, well, yeah, what you're saying, Jeff, is like that tendency to be busy all the time. It's like almost a distraction, and I think it's really easy to do that in today's culture. There's always another task to be done, or some type of entertainment to distract us. Not that entertainment's bad; it can be used for rest as well. But yeah, that idea of like always having to be doing something. Um, One of the best things I found for my anxiety that helps is literally sitting still or just journaling, taking a walk, like doing things that don't require necessarily accomplishing something. And then, yeah, on the other end of that, avoidance can definitely be a reaction to an anxiety provoking situation. And I think avoiding the situation leads to maybe less anxiety in the moment. But if you keep procrastinating or keep avoiding something you need to be doing, you're still going to feel that anxiety down the line, and it may even be worse. So, yeah.
So, did you master the ability of sitting so still that you become invisible?
All right, Drax.
Uh, okay. Well, that was our big portion of anxiety. We're getting to the portion of each of us kind of give us our testimonies of how anxiety affects us, how we deal with it, and if we're able to cope with it.
We do have a comment from the chat first, though.
Hmm.
Brian said that ADHD can cause a lot of anxiety when you try to set too many tasks at once, which we haven't talked about.
Mm.
We talked about always needing to be doing a task and avoiding a task, but we didn't touch on setting too many tasks at once, not prioritizing and being able to separate them.
Yeah.
Got any thoughts on that?
That comes from so ADHD is a mental illness, so it's because you're just so sporadic, you're so all over the place that you. I think would ADHD people have problem with like finishing one task? It's because they're starting so many tasks at one time. It's almost pretty much impossible to finish it. Whereas it's different from someone that wants to just keep staying busy, right? They just find
Right.
something to do.
Yeah, I think so. I would say ADHD is under the umbrella of neurodivergent. So they just kind of have a different way of thinking. So maybe uh and again, I mean, this is just my experience, what I know based off of what I read and my ADHD friends. It's like you can start a lot of tasks, but it's maybe trouble finishing it, or it's the flip side is the hyper focus, just wanting to work on one thing for so long, or maybe it's like you really get engrossed in this activity for so long that you forget to eat or forget to do that thing you're supposed to do.
Fair enough.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's one end of you can't help but do so many tasks, and the other one is, oh, I need to do more tasks so I don't get anxious.
Or hyperfixating and saying task A needs to be done before I can move on to anything else,
Yes,
and
exactly.
forgetting, oh, I haven't eaten today.
Mm,
Yeah, I would
So,
say if anybody's curious, just look up the task matrix, um, and then it talks about if a task is urgent or important, or if not, and what to do with that task, either to do it now, to schedule it, I believe to delegate it, and the last one is to, if it's not urgent or important, get rid of it. Just don't need to do it.
nice.
I'm gonna have to
Cool.
look that up. I don't think I've ever heard of the task matrix. Learn something new
Yeah.
every day.
All right. Kyle, you want to start off with how anxiety affects you and how you've dealt with it?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say I've dealt with anxiety most of my life. It's been a lot of the times general anxiety or most more so social anxiety. I think I did deal with it growing up, but I didn't really notice it as much or just felt like it was part of me. And then really once I got to college, it kind of, I mean, high school as well, but once I got to college, it really hit me. It was a lot of change, a lot of new situations, needing to make new friends, needing to balance everything. It was just a lot, and it was anxiety inducing for me. But I think that was where I started to learn how to have like more healthy habits and how to cope with that. And so exercise has been a big part for me, which helps with stress and anxiety. Um, I would say journaling as well, meditation. I started going to therapy on and off kind of since college, so that could be helpful as well. Um, but I would say before I had habits or like things in place to help me cope, it was more so just kind of numbing out, not processing the emotion or the feeling, going to just a lot of playing video games or distracting myself with entertainment, especially in high school and early in college. Um, yeah, I really tried hard in college to put myself out there to socialize a lot and to make lots of friends, and it was great. But I got to the point where it was like, okay, I I don't have to be the life of the party. That's not my personality.
Right.
but But yeah, I can, make an effort to be social and also have time to recharge. Um, once I Around that time, I got like a really good sleep schedule down. I would say like what you're eating is very important. Exercise is very important, and also like your sleep. That Getting those things in check can help with anxiety. Um, but yeah, in terms of therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy has helped. But recently, I would say a lot more trust in God has helped me, and prayer in those anxious moments. Um, yeah, just like learning to lean on God and to rely on Him more, and to not worry about things out of my control because I know He is in control, and ultimately He is sovereign. So that has really helped lessen anxiety and just bring more peace. Also, recently I've just been, trying to sit still, and I've also cut a lot of things out. I think excessive entertainment, like deleted all the apps off my phone except for like the necessary ones, like put my phone on black and white, like have time to meditate every day. Cut out a lot of video games, slowly getting back into it. But yeah, I think for me, like I said, anxiety has been part of my life, but I've just learned lots of ways to cope with it. And I just want to say, what I've learned is that anxiety is not necessarily bad. It's just a feeling. It's telling you something. But like I said earlier, excessive anxiety, is worth it to reach out for help. But the goal for me, right, what I've realized in all of it is like not to get rid of anxiety. Because again, like fear is kind of the root of that, and like fear, it's not bad. It's just an emotion. It can be helpful, but just to lessen it and to cope with it.
When so you said your religion helped a lot. So what part of it was, is it the feeling of like, hey, like God has everything in hands, like you can kind of lean and confide in him, that kind of like relieves the anxiety, or what aspect of it is making you feel like relief from your anxiety?
Sure. So when I'm not trusting in God, it's almost like this idea of me trying to control too much in my life or trying to do too much, and it leads to a lot of overwhelm and just worry and maybe even burnout. When I start to pray and rely on God more, it just brings more peace and joy. Those are two of the fruits of the spirit. When we lean into God, we can experience that. But really, it's just the idea of, I guess, taking time to sit still and be with Him and recognize that He's in control and I'm not.
I'll say faith is a very difficult concept to explain to other people,
Mm-hmm.
like because you have your own personal beliefs and how you feel and how certain things make you feel, and it's a very difficult thing to get across to other people. Like Vin, you asked the question of like how has your faith helped you, and for a lot of people, like the answer will be it just did. Like my faith has made me feel better. Like
Right.
it's hard to put into words like what true faith can do for you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to share a verse if that's cool with you guys that has really helped me. That's
Yeah.
related to anxiety,
Yeah, go for
and
it.
it says, yeah, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Philippians 4:6 through 7. And so in that, I mean, it's basically saying to me, the antidote to worry is prayer. Um, Also, gratitude is in there as well. Thanksgiving. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people aren't, maybe don't have a faith background or maybe aren't religious that are listening to this, but I would say, hey, even just like gratitude, thankfulness is really important. Prayer, I mean, that can also be seen as like just sitting still or
Meditation.
ask meditation or asking for help. But yeah, really, I mean, it's pretty clear from that verse. So that to me takes it, from just more of a feeling to something more concrete.
Nice. Jeff?
So, anxiety for me kind of stemmed from like childhood of never being enough and not being able to fit that mold that was set for me. I will say as I've gotten older, I've learned to deal with it better, like in my adult life, I should say. Like in my teenage and young adult years, like kind of like Kyle was saying, like I needed to be that life of the party, and I needed to have all the friends and do all the things, and needed that feeling of acceptance from everybody. But as I've gotten older, I've significantly cut back on all of that. And the biggest aspect of that was probably around the time I was 25, 26. I stopped caring about having all the friends and doing all the things. It more so became like, why have 50 acquaintances when I can have 10 good, close knit friends? And I leaned on that smaller group of friends, and instead of, oh, hey, there's this big party this weekend, I'd rather go to a friend's house and watch a movie. Or, you know, watch whatever sport happens to be on that weekend. So in my younger years, anxiety was a huge factor because, I was trying to fit the mold that was set forth for me by, parents, teachers, coaches, things like that. And then in college, the mold for being part of a fraternity and, being part of all these clubs and these classes and having to fit in everywhere to just, I'm gonna worry about me. I got my friends, I've got my family, like that's all I need. So that has helped me deal with anxiety. Do I still get anxious? All the time.
Mm.
But I have found that for me, like when I get those feelings of my heart rate starts going up, my blood pressure starts going up, for me it's breathing exercises, like deep breath in, deep breath out, and then take it step by step. Like if I'm anxious about a task I have to do, deep breath in, deep breath out, break the task down. Okay, like I can start here, which will get me here, which will end me here. So learning how to look at things from the outside versus, you know, not having any control and just being like, what do I do? So that's
Nice.
kind of how I approached it. And I know my methods don't work for everybody. Like when we go going back to the anger episode, how I just woke up one day and was like, why am I mad? That's not going to work for everybody. That's just what's personally worked for me.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man.
Do you feel like there is a turning point in your journey with anxiety,
Um,
or maybe many small ones? I don't know.
the biggest one was my final semester in college. Because like I went to college to be a teacher, so my final semester was student teaching and, you know, building lesson plans and getting ready for certification exams. I no longer had the time to do all the things. Which, like, at the time, like, massive FOMO of, like, I'm missing this party, or the guys are going to, they're going bowling, or they're going golfing, like, and I don't have the time or the energy to go do it. But, like, at the beginning of it, like, massive anxiety. Like, I want to go do these things and experience these things, but, like, as it progressed, I kind of got used to it and slowly was just like, well, I'm bettering myself. Like,
Nice.
you know, like I'm working towards this degree to work towards this job and, this path that I've set forth that I want in my life. Why am I worrying about going to the bar? Okay, yeah, I'm going to miss, this round of golf with my friends, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be, rounds of golf in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like that slow process of stop worrying about it and focus on me and attaining my goals and then fitting in those things that I might, feel I'm missing out on when I can.
Hey
Yeah,
man, they banned golf. That was your last chance to play golf. It was over. Couldn't play golf anymore. That's why.
yeah. So just like learning, I guess, to love yourself and show up for yourself, and to know maybe what's important to you.
Yeah, just trying to fit my own mold. Instead of worrying about all the other molds out there, it was, these are the goals I've set for myself, and I need to see them through. And I do think meeting my now wife at the time really helped with that too, because, like, she is a few years younger than me, but mentally she's 20 years older than me.
Mm.
Like, she had all her ducks in a row, and she had goals and timelines and all that, and I was like, I don't got none of that. So, kind of learning from her, at least for, like, goal orientation of, like, I really need to focus on this versus that.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely having positive influences uh, in your life can really help. I would say for me, my best friend has really helped me to just learn to process emotions uh, rather than I used to just bottle emotions up and it was not healthy. Just learning to process them, and also a lot of other guys recently in my life that have just helped me to be able to, yeah, process emotions well. So definitely like having positive influences in our life could help a lot.
What about you, Vin?
Mm, anxiety. I think I think anxiety was prevalent, but I had a fight response to it every time. So I'm thinking like when I was growing up, self-induced anxiety of, for example, most prevalent one was procrastination. So then I just wanted to play games, and I'm like, it's 12 o'clock. I need to do my homework, but I need to sleep. So I wake up at like 5 a.m. and I'm rushing to do things, and so I think I just kind of just brute forced the anxiety out. Um, and I think growing up, the most prevalent anxiety inducing events were mainly with relationships and dating and stuff of like, oh my gosh, yeah, fear of rejection. It's like, okay, like, how do I do this? What do I do? Like, oh my gosh, I really like this girl and I really want her to like me. So what am I gonna do? And I overthink things, um, and then I think at some point there was a turning point just growing up. I'm not I can't pinpoint when, but definitely in my early 20s, I'd realized was like I prepared. What is it? I didn't set expectations. I kind of gave up on expectations. It's like every time I made a plan or goal or anything from my life, it just kind of fell through. So I was like, you know what? Like, why do I keep disappointing myself? I'm gonna set no expectations, and I'm just gonna prepare for the worst because kind of the catastrophic thinking is like e- every time I tried to do something, it seemed like the worst. So it's like I hate this. I hate this negative feeling. I hate being overthinking. I hate all of this. So it's like, okay, I want to be happy, and so let's prepare for it. And ever since that switch of okay, don't have any expectations and prepare for the worst, which is really it's kind of a sucky way to live, but it helped me cope with life, right? Because life sucks most of the time. Like problems are always going to arise, and I'm like, well, I'm here, so I have to deal with it. So I think that was whenever I gained that switch. That's kind of what helped me with my anxiety. Um, so
Are you
so
still
yeah,
preparing for the worst?
I I prepared so much for the worst. I don't have to prepare for it anymore.
I'm already
I don't know how to
set.
describe.
I'm good.
It's like I've thought catastrophically for so long. I'm ready.
The bomb shelter is fully stocked and loaded. We're good to go.
Ironically, with a best friend, that's the analogy we use is like for him, his life, everything's always straightforward. It's always good, and for me, I'm always like something's always happening, and so we use the analogy of or metaphor of he's living in this two-story house with this a field of flowers. He's just on his rocking chair in the front porch, smoking his cigar, whatever. He's chilling. I'm over here in my bunker right next to him, and I'm peeking out like, "Hey, Colin, is everything okay?" And he's like, "Oh, it's good over here." And then like, a nuke hits me. I'm like, "No, it's not good." I go back in the bunker. So that's the analogy we use. That's funny. That's funny. So yeah, that's what helped me the most is just prepare for the worst and expect nothing. And you know, you can only go up from there, right? That's rock bottom. You can only go up from there.
That's. I mean, I'm not trying to knock you, man, but to me, that's not a good outlook to have on
I
life.
know.
Is I'm already at the bottom. It can only go up from here.
Exactly. Hey, better than from the reverse is you think you're at the top and you can only go down from here. That's
I mean,
also.
yes, but
I'm an extreme person. That's the thing
Yeah.
people have to know about me is I'm so dramatic and extreme. I have to live that way. All right. Yeah.
Do you play the best case scenarios in your head too?
Best case scenarios.
What about that?
Do you want-
yeah, if
I
you're,
don't
play
prepa-
that
if you're
anymore?
preparing for the worst,
Right.
what's the best?
Yeah.
Because you have to know the best to prepare for the worst.
What? No, you have to prepare. Okay. That's true.
Let's use your example of a nuke.
Okay,
So, worst case scenario, a nuke is dropped on you.
Okay.
What's best case scenario?
A nuke isn't dropped,
There you go.
right?
Every negative has a
exactly.
positive, so if you're
That's
preparing
true.
for the worst in life, what is the best?
Right, but if I expected no nuke and a nuke comes, then it sucks, right? You're disappointed, you're upset,
Well,
you're angry, you're sad, and dead. See? Right? Exactly. So what's the
Oh,
point?
man.
And again, I never promote my way of life. That's the thing. People ask me like, "Oh, Vin, like, how did you do this and that and whatever?" And I tell them like, I tell them what I do, but I tell them like I don't recommend it. This is not. I don't want you to live this way. I don't want anyone to live my life of catastrophic thinking and preparing for it all the time, constantly thinking, right? So because like I said earlier was I overthought every night and I couldn't sleep to the point where now I just overthink all the time. So it's just my baseline, so it's okay. So now I can sleep because you get used to it. But
That's
it's like
horrible.
yeah, and I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you to overthink 24/7 and get used to it. That's horrible. That's the worst advice. So it's like, I can't tell you that's just how it works for me. It's
Yeah.
not. I don't recommend it for anybody. So
I mean, everyone has their different ways of dealing with things and learning to cope with things. That's why
Right.
I gave the precursor when I said I'm not the good example for anger.
I'm not
Because
the
I
good
just
example for
I just woke up and was like, why am I angry?
right.
I don't know very many other people in the world that could just be like, why am I like this? Let's change it.
I mean, it didn't happen overnight, right? The brain training, emotional training, like morphing your brain, all that. Yeah, fun stuff.
If you want to look at it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about? Anything else we want to bring up?
Not with
say-
this particular chapter, for me at least.
I would say I've definitely experienced that overthinking at night
Mhm.
or not being able to sleep. And it's very frustrating because it's almost like the harder you try to turn
Yeah.
the brain off and go to sleep, it doesn't really help. So I don't know. I've tried stream of consciousness journaling,
Mm,
and sometimes that helps. Literally just brain dump on a piece of paper. Throw
right.
it away if you want. But you know, whatever works, man.
Sleeping's
I was
not
gonna-
a topic that I should really be brought into.
What is?
Sleeping is not a good topic for me.
Yeah.
4
okay.
hours a night is a good night for me.
Yeah.
That's
I
not
could
good.
I could rant about a sleep routine if you guys want. If it's related to the topic. But
Okay. So we'll wrap it up with anxiety this week. Next week will be our finale with happiness and love. So
Finale to
Jeff?
the emotions chapter.
Shins chapter. Thank you.
Don't
so it'll
say
be,
finale overall. Like,
oh yes.
this ain't
Next
done
week
done.
finale. Yes, sir. So next week will be the finale to our emotions chapter with happiness and love. And after that, we'll get into connections chapters. So, all right, Jeff, you want to do the motto?
Absolutely. Don't forget that we do have our Discord server. It is the Brothers Bonfire. If you're wanting a community, a band of brothers that are going through similar experiences to you, then come join us on our journey and take a seat at the bonfire. Our Discord link is in the About section below me here on Twitch, in the description of the video on YouTube, and in the About on Spotify. All are welcome.
Along with us uploading every Wednesday, we're also streaming the podcast every Sunday at 7 p.m. So come hang with us after the podcast. And the stream is a safe space for anyone to just chill and hang and chat about anything. Take care, guys. And break. Nice. Let me stop real quick. Cool.
That being said, is there anyone in the audience that has anything they want to say or talk about?
And while people are typing up, if anybody, Kyle, how did you feel about today? How was the episode for you?
I think it was great. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot I could talk about. But I think a lot of good points were hit about anxiety. And I think hopefully it was helpful to people.
Do you feel like the podcast was streamlined and everything? Everything seemed. How'd you feel as a guest?
I felt good. I mean, I'm pretty excited to be on here. Not gonna lie, since we're talking about anxiety, it did give me a little bit of anxiety to come on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
For
That's
sure.
normal,
I mean,
dude. Like, Vin and I've done a couple episodes now, and I'm still nervous before every episode. Like, okay, like, do I know what I'm gonna say? Like, how is this gonna come across? Is it gonna be coherent?
right. Like in my head, I'm like have this like perfect like monologue thing going on, and then trying to get that out. Yeah, I think overall, I mean, it was great. It's also nice to hear that, a little bit of nervousness is normal.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Okay. I do gotta go, so I can't stay. But thanks, Kyle, for being our guest, man.
Yeah, there's only
Appreciate you guys.
3 people.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Great.
Brian, Vin, Strive.
Hey, hello.
Thank you for the
All right.
resub, by the way, Strive.
Okay. I gotta go, so I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.
Bye, Ben.
We will cut it here then.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all for watching.